Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to yet another exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Please do me this favor, one little favor, press that button that says subscribe. We need the viewership, we need the support so that we can, cope with these algorithms. I have a wonderful guest for you. I have Pastor Grace. We're going to talk about ants in the context of doing business in times of disruption. We're going to also deal with this book, Anthill, Lessons from the Ants. That's what I'm saying. We're going to talk about ants. Welcome to the studio, Pastor Grace.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mogobe. Thank you for having me in a beautiful place indeed, and a beautiful day.
Thank you. Be kind enough just to introduce yourself in terms of getting people to understand who you are and sharing your background.
Okay, my name is David Grace. I was born and bred in Palape, Central District of Botswana. I am married to my beautiful wife, Esther Grace, and I have two lovely kids, Joshua and Hadassah. And I'm also the senior pastor of Kingdom Embassy International, which is a church headquartered in Palape, but it has branches across the country. And apart from that, I am a speaker, a trainer, and a coach, and that's what I do most of the time.
Okay. Tell us about your academics and your background.
Well, I studied all my life in Palape, from primary school to senior school. Then I came to the University of Botswana to do information systems, and then from there I got into training for ministry, and then I went and started the ministry. At the moment I'm actually doing my MBA.
Okay, yes. At the University of Botswana?
No, in the University of St. John, York in United Kingdom.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us how you drifted into training. How did that come about?
Training has been part of who I am. I think from a young age I've been intrigued about knowledge and sharing knowledge with people. I was the guy that wants to share with people what has happened, narrating stories of what has happened during the day. And so I think somewhere along the way, as I grew up, or as I was in school, I loved sharing with other students at breaks and at lunch. And then I realized that's a passion. So when I finished Form 5, I started training those who are in junior secondary schools and giving them advice. And so that's how it came about.
We're going to talk about disruption. In fact, our topic is doing business during the time of disruption.
Yes, of course.
Why do you, David Grace, believe this is a time of disruption? Simplify it for us.
Well, understanding the word disruption is very critical. It's key. The word disruption has two meanings. Firstly, we are talking about the introduction of product and services that comes and change the way people do business in an environment. A typical example would be Facebook or social media companies that have come and really changed the way people do business and do life. Secondly, a disruption happens when a change happens in an environment and it demands new product and services, such as the time we are actually in right now. We're in the time of the pandemic, and the pandemic has really disrupted or changed the way people do business, the way our customers interact with businesses. And that's what I can define about disruption.
And then, and we still have to do business during this time. First question is, disruption is not destruction, the first issue. In other words, we should not think of it in negative terms. Why?
Well, two people looking at the same thing, another one sees a threat, another one sees an opportunity. And actually I love the word that I've heard about, the word crisis and problem. does not exist in the Chinese language. It's actually what they see is an opportunity. So disruption is not destruction, but disruption is actually an introduction of an opportunity and a new door if people look at it from a good context. Yes.
And speaking about it in terms of your life, where would you say you've experienced that disruption, which you can safely say it wasn't destruction?
All my life, I have constantly boarded the bus of change. Change is a constant. To be where I am right now, I had to let go of what I used to be. And for that to happen, I had to be willing to be challenged. So, just the first day I went to primary school, and I learned I could write my name, which all the time I've heard it being said, but I had to learn how to write it, was a disruption. And getting to grow through the education system and being taught that 1 minus 2 it can't, and then at one time it can. Those are disruptions that I experienced. In other words, I had to keep on learning and relearning and unlearning some things. Yes.
And do you see that in our culture we accept? Are we accepting disruption, or do we still see it as destructive?
The society shies away from it because of the tone that probably people have given to the word disruption. And because of that, people see it as a threat. But human beings are on a continuous journey of change. You know, they say that change is the way by which the future invades the present. In other words, for us to become a better people, or for us to excel in the things that we do, we have to be disrupted in certain ways. Okay, we still cook, but the way we cook has changed.
Over the centuries.
Over the centuries. We still use modes of transport, but they have changed. Because as time goes on, we need it convenient, we need it faster, and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you gravitate towards ministry, towards being a man of God?
Thank you for that question. Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to summarize it. Growing up in a family where we were raised by a single mom, and my mom had to come up with ways of raising us up, and one of them was to sell traditional beer. So in context, I grew up around wild characters, and be introduced to alcohol at that young age. And they say where everybody succeeds by stealing, the younger generation gets the motivation to become criminals. So I grew up in that kind of environment, and then I met a neighbor who kept on sending us, and we didn't know that we're delivering very dangerous things that I can't say in this podcast, but eventually this man passed away. He was shot by the police in an exchange somewhere, but at the end of the day,
because of the type of things,
because of the types of things that he was trading, and he was literally our mentor, teaching us about crime and so forth and so on. So by the time I was doing standard 7, or from standard 1 to 6, I was already a headache for the teachers. We were 4th in the class, and I always got number 3 from the back. That is, I maintained number 37 for 6 years because I didn't attend school. I was just a rascal, and at that young age, a grown-up person could not really look at me and say, don't do this and that. So by the time I reached Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, I was uncontrollable. And my mom could not control me. As a single mom, she didn't have a male voice. And so no matter what she said, she would beat me. But I was used to her beatings because I was experiencing far more things there. Violent, fighting, street fighting, fighting for money, the one who wins, and so forth and so on. So by the time I did Form 4, even though I was a good student, I was failing. And now, by Form 4, that's when the turnaround came on the first term. I was already drinking too much. And one particular day I have drank, and we just closed the school for the first time. I drank on Friday. Then on Saturday, I was just on this, hangover. And I was just lying down in my aunt's unfinished hut. And what I'm about to say is religious. It may be extreme for some viewers, but that's what happened to me. I was lying down there, and I told them, nobody should disturb me. Nobody should make noise for me. And they know if I say that, if you make noise, there's going to be war. I'm going to fight.
Uh-huh.
So I slept, and I heard a voice calling me 3 times, literally in my ears, calling my name. So I woke up and ready to beat whoever was disturbing me, and there was nobody. So I went back to sleep again. That kind of sleep when you are in drugs and so. I went back straight to my sleep. The voice came the second time.
What did it say?
And called me, my name, 3 times. And so I found myself answering that voice and saying, what do you want? And the next statement that came was, go to church this Sunday. It was Saturday. And I answered back, where? And I was told, go to the community hall. Then I laughed. I thought, the drugs I took are now working on me and messing up my head. Because community hall is where we meet Machiko, Splash, Lucky Dube. That's where we did all our parties. And now there will be a church in such building. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, that conviction was so strong.
It sounded like a strong man's voice.
Yeah, very strong male voice speaking to me. And this kind of fear came upon me that I didn't fear anybody or anything from that moment. But I was so afraid that I took the only clothes I had, which were stolen clothes, by the way, and I ironed them on Saturday. So my mom asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm preparing to go to church. And my mom said, finally the devil is going to church. Because that's who I was. I was so bad that way.
But she just said it plainly.
Plainly, because that's who I was. So the next day, I went to church at 7 in the morning.
Because you then realized this, you're not hallucinating.
No. This was real, because I couldn't eat from that very moment on Saturday. I didn't eat anything. The next morning, I was still disturbed. I went to church at 7. And I found...
You went to that community hall.
And to that community hall. And I found exactly what I was thinking I'll find. You know, broken bottles, tins of beer, and one fellow who fell flat out in the concert and slept in the community hall the whole night. So that's what I found.
He had what we call a blackout.
A blackout, of course. So I was thinking, well, maybe I didn't hear, maybe I heard. But cut the story short, eventually around 8 o'clock, the pastor's wife came singing into that building and began to clean up the place. I was not a softie. But all of a sudden, I started seeing myself cleaning up with this lady and helping her to clean. I said, no. Something's happening to me. I'm losing.
This cannot be me.
No, it can't be me. I'm a tough guy. I don't do dishes. I don't clean up things. I don't. So I began to clean with her, and then around 9, 20 people came. And the pastor said, there is one particular person here. You've been living a bad life. You need to come and give your life to Christ. I don't know what they are talking about.
After the sermon, maybe.
After the sermon, yes. And then they called me out, and that's 22 years ago. And I prayed the prayer. I was into pornography, masturbation, all those things. But immediately after praying that prayer, the appetite to smoke, to drink just died. I don't know how, but it just simply vanished. And I thought, these guys, they have done magic on me or something has happened, you know. But that's where my story started.
Is that when you accepted Christ as your personal savior?
Yeah, that is when I accepted Christ as my Lord and personal savior. And that is what answers how did I get into ministry. That began the process, and I was doing Form 4.
So would you call this your Damascus experience?
I will, definitely. It's my Damascus experience, because a total metamorphosis happened, you know, extreme change from this violent person, selfish and self-centered, to a person who wants to now help others and see transformation in the lives of other people. Yeah.
And still, that's a long way from becoming a pastor. How did things evolve from there?
The church that I went to emphasized sharing your story with other people. And so immediately within 2 months or so, because effectively they had classes that they take you through, there were around 8 classes. They take you through that, explaining to you what is Christianity, what are Christian duties and so on. One of them is sharing your experience with others in the bid to also call them to that. So I found myself now preaching to people in the assembly, in the very school where I used to be naughty. And so there was commotion, divided camps. Is this guy now playing with God, or this guy is serious? You know, so there was these 2 camps in the school. But after some time they said, oh wow, this is serious, because a lot of students started gathering around me, and I started teaching them the Bible as I was learning the Bible. And then that was Form 4, 1999.
Were you part of the Scripture Union?
No, I was
know
not.
at GSS we had Scripture Union.
I was not part of the Scripture Union because I was weird. I was a very weird person. Before then, I was like I said the other time in the launch, I was addicted to reading novels, cowboys novels. We didn't have TV or radio at home, so that was my escape. So I was the guy who was holding a Bible and 4 novels.
You're referring to the launch of this book. We'll talk about it.
The launch of the book. So I was carrying all this, and to SUs, you can't come carrying a Bible and then carrying novels at the same time. I mean, they can't believe you are born again or you are changed. But there was a group of people that could associate with my style and my approach. Then, the year 2000, I had another experience. I was fasting for 3 days. It was a Thursday, and I came just into the hut where I grew up, my mom's hut. I was preparing myself to sleep when the scripture in Jeremiah 1:5 began to just explode inside.
What does it say for those of us who may not?
It says that before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, and I ordained you to become a prophet to the nation. I have literally, that is when I had God telling me, I'm calling you to preach my gospel, to train people and teach them about the life of God. And so I wrote down that experience, and I knew that this call means I have a gift, but the gift has to be developed. I have to undergo a certain type of training. And so I ended up in 2000, I passed Form 5. And then my mom was so poor that I could not afford the registration fee for UB, for University of Botswana. It was 60 pula at that time. And to afford coming here, which was around 17 pula on the bus, couldn't afford that.
She stopped her
beer business? She stopped her beer business because of arthritis and BP. So now I ended up spending 1 year at home while the people that I finished school with.
Because you couldn't raise 60 bucks and bus fare.
Yeah, I couldn't raise that. So
and you couldn't approach the pastor or anybody or people?
Well, the church that I went to introduced me to Jesus Christ. But I wouldn't say they had the social support system that was required, which today I am very big on that people are not numbers that comes to church, but you have to be involved in their social life. So philanthropic work has to happen.
That's what I'm asking about.
Yeah, it's very, very critical to ensure that, Jesus preached to them, he taught them, but he fed them. At one place, he also clothed a madman who was naked. So the complete gospel surrounds those things. Benevolence has to be part of it and so forth. Somebody could have changed my life with 60 pula. But then, that's what happened.
That's what happened. A year passed.
A year passed. So the second year, but I was not distracted. I decided that full year to locate 3 of the secondary school and the senior school in my hometown. And Which
hometown is that?
It's Palape.
Palape.
So on Tuesday I'll be in Mapula CGSS, and on Wednesday I'll be in Palape CGSS, and on Thursday teaching the students after study, gathering a group of students and teaching them the Bible and so forth.
Yes.
So I kept myself busy, in trying to do social transformation in the lives of people. So I was quite busy. I affected over 300 or so students
who accepted Christ.
That year. And so then the next year, a good Samaritan, just a far relative, just passed by and said, "Why is this boy doing at home?" And he has passed. At that time, I had 44 points. That is, passing. And so he said, "What is he doing at home? Can you give me his papers?" So he took my papers and went and applied for a job for me in Depswana. There was a post there, and then he applied. And then Depswana called me. So I ended up in Depswana on an interview with 300 other people. And so they were looking for people who were going to do diamond security. So I passed the interview. I was nominated.
I think also the physical part. You fitted the bill. Nobody's going to pass with the diamond with you in front.
With me in front. So I passed the interview and so forth and so on. Then I was to study 6 months in Botswana, then 4 years in America, because you will have to operate the diamond security system and so forth and so on. And so in the evening, I went to share the good news with my mom. I went to Botswana telecommunication telephone booth, those ones you had to turn the hand like this. So I have to call my mom, and I know it will take 5 minutes before they call her from our home to come to our neighbor's house. Then she will take off her shoes and sit on a white plastic chair by the phone. And then I will call again. She will answer. So when she answered, I said,
Those
Mom,
were the days,
I said, Mom, our life has changed. I got the job. The job came with a car, with a house, with free electricity and water. I mean, it was just generosity coming from poverty and having that big package, you know. And I was so happy. So as I was telling her, she said, because the next year, that very year, I also found 120. Now the application fee in UB was 120.
It's doubled now.
Yeah, so but I found the money and I have applied prior to this guy coming. So he said, UB has sent a letter. And while my mother said that voice that called me the first time I went to church told me, leave the job in Botswana and go to UB.
Just like that.
So I went and told those guys. They were disappointed because they really wanted me to.
This voice speaks from within.
From within me, from here.
But you can hear it clearly as I'm talking to you.
I can hear it as I'm talking to you. Yeah, it can direct me, it can show me your house if the need be, or where I need to slow down if there is an accident on the road, or if I need to study for the exams, where to study, all those things. Literally, it's a friend who guides you on a daily basis.
For non-believers, it sounds magical.
Yeah, it sounds magical, but when you have the experience, because it can't be explained, when you have the experience, it's like trying to wrap your head around how a baby grow up in the womb of a woman. You can't, but at the end of the day, the baby does, and it becomes another independent human being later. So I quit Botswana. They said, no, if you change your mind, we'll keep your job. It will still be here. We'll wait for you. So I came to the university, which was a good decision. I didn't see it at that time, but it was very good for me because when I got to the university here, two things happened to me. I was studying a course that has literally changed my life, information systems. As an information scientist, and being somebody who is studious, who learns, who does books, I have systems that gives me information when I need it for different kinds of clients. I have all this mechanism that I can use to gather information and do my researches and so forth and so on. And then at the same time, I had the privilege of starting my first fellowship or group of students like an SU in the university, grow it from nothing to over 200 university students and take care of them on a weekly basis.
They came to listen to your sermons?
Yes, and that challenged my leadership abilities. That gave me responsibility to build teams and to organize events and so forth. So I was literally busy. And that was the time when there were no phones and so forth and so on.
This was in the 90s?
You don't know, it was around 2002. We didn't have cell phones around that time.
Okay.
They were still the first
cell
ones that
phones came in 98, I believe.
98,
but they were bricks.
They were bricks for few people.
Yeah, they were bricks. They were not phones.
For the students to afford them, it's when Triumph and Motorola started coming in.
Yes.
And those Nokia 3310. That's when we could have, phones.
Yes.
So that is how we're talking about how I became a pastor and so on.
Yes.
So it was here, 2005 in the university. I was fasting for 40 days. Fasting for 40 days means I don't eat food until evening every day, but I can take water. So I was fasting, and then in the fasting, that voice told me, I will send you a man who will teach you how to be a pastor, how to be a minister. So,
why were you fasting? Was it to achieve a particular purpose?
Yes, it was for a particular purpose. I was asking God, among the pastors, in our country we call everybody a pastor. It's a generic word. But in the Bible, there are 5 different kinds of what we call a pastor. In Ephesians 4:11, it says God gave some first to be apostles, and second prophets, and then teachers, evangelists, and pastors. All these people, they have different functions that they do. right? So God called me to be an apostle during that 40-day fasting. Gave me the name of the church, which is Kingdom Embassy International. And if you know about registration of society, you present 10 names and then you are given one. I presented one name and I was given the name because it was the name he wanted for his church. And then September 2005, I finished the fasting on the 8th of March. And on the 9th, I proposed to my wife at 6 o'clock in the evening. block 475 from 27. So
you even remember
I remember
that much detail.
That much detail. So
yeah.
now I have
a memory of an elephant.
Yeah, thank you. I had a girlfriend and I had a calling. I knew now when I come out of the university what is next. So at the end of the day, September, that pastor came from Nigeria. He's called Pastor Korede Komaya. I met him. Korede Komaya.
Yeah.
He's Nigerian. He's from Nigeria.
He just came out of the blue, no?
He came to pastor a church called Winners Chapel.
Oh, I
it's
see.
a big church by Block 6.
No, I've been there.
Yes. Before it goes, it went there. We were at Haley Silas Road, and so it was still a little church that time.
Yeah.
We had around 400 people or so. So when he came, he took the church from 400 people to over 2.5 people in 2 years. And so when he came, he was what we call an all-rounder pastor. He's the one that gave me the kind of pastoring style that I use. He will teach us first service on business, how to win tenders, how to do business in Botswana, how to be a tenderpreneur, how to be an entrepreneur. And then he will go into the Bible now and give you lessons on family, lessons on how to advance in your career. He was just,
unbelievable.
Out of he was a disruptive pastor in what we are talking about.
Yes.
So that is how I was trained for ministry, because Winners Chapel has a training arm. It has an institution that trains pastors. So I went through it for 2 years. And then after 2 years, I was ordained, the official ordaining of a pastor and presenting them to the society. So I was ordained with 4 other pastors, with 2 Botswana and 2 foreigners. And after that ordination, I married on the 24th of November, 2007. 25th of November, it was this last Sunday, as he gave over to the next pastor and went back home.
Okay,
that's how I became a pastor.
So you've just explained disruption as transition.
Yeah.
So which part in this process what you think was most pivotal in getting you on to where you are now? Is it the voice that spoke from within?
I believe so. The voice that spoke from within. I always tell people that this being called God is so wise and so smart, and he knows the different varieties of people. The way I was so violent, I don't think a pastor could approach me and talk to me about God.
You'd have beaten him up.
I don't know. I couldn't trust myself. I don't know what will ever happen. But anyway, he came himself to speak to me, which became a true witness, because I followed a voice from a heart that told me I should go to church. And then 22 years later, everything about my life has extremely changed. That when I share the first testimony as we started the interview and what I am today, they are world apart. That is the transition of a life from a bad character to an influencer that other people can look to.
You say it's important to be strategic in one's response. I've heard it said that you should not be reactive, you should be responsive. Is this the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yes, of course. When a disruption happens, when a crisis like the one that hit the world, the pandemic happened, as a pastor, I'll share with you an example of a strategy. You have people come into the building on a Sunday, they are welcomed and you teach them. In a society that we don't see the power in a pastor being on TV preaching to us. We don't have a lot of televangelists here. We don't have people speaking on social media here. Now we do because of that pandemic. Something has to shift in the church. We believed in people being in a building. And I still remember the day when the lockdown started. And the last service I had, I still remember, because the church that I pastor in Palapi is a very huge church with big numbers of people. And so I was one of the first churches that the police came to check to see if we are complying. So 8 policemen just came straight into the compound, and they found me with a team of 5 people. But what was disturbing is that as I was speaking to those people, it was 9 o'clock. Online in our social media page, my service was happening there. So they come and find the building empty, but there is a service running on social media, because we had pre-recorded our services. And we had so much content that even if there was no church for the next 4 years, we had edited content that was relevant, that all I need to tell my media is we are going to be releasing the message on family, on this and that. So now, that became a strategy, drawing from our archives and began to minister to our people. And then secondly, being able,
because you've been recording all these sermons.
you can imagine,
you've archived all of them
for over 15 years of content. And ensuring that from the beginning of the ministry, I had to ensure that I invest in lovely equipment like the one I see in this studio, which is very, very important.
Thank you.
Because once you record something, you give it 1,000 lives. It lives beyond you. It is something that 100 years from now, if it's kept well, people will still hear about this. And it will be another pandemic or another situation, because there's going to be more disruption coming. And that's what introduces a new phase. So you have to have a strategy. So now I have people, then we are told, no, the church can now meet, but we need 50 people. Now we have to meet 50 people. So what did I do? Here is my strategy. So I take my church and divide it in the same town into centers or campuses. I have a group of people meeting 50 somewhere. So I have 10 locations, I have 500 people meeting physically, and I have leaders who are overseeing that. And I'm in a certain station, and I'm broadcasting to them, and somebody's monitoring everything on the other side and wrapping up things on the other side. And now, we didn't react, we responded. And we had to metamorphose and do things that we could not do before. And it was okay, we made mistakes, but it was first time. So now we have on between March 2020 to May, when we checked our analytics on Facebook, we have spoken to 648,000 people, which we could not do when we are running a physical service.
Wow, this is so inspirational. Let's talk about learning new trends. But in talking about it, I want us to bring in the book now.
Yes.
You launched this book, if I'm correct, this past weekend. Actually, it was on Saturday, on the 6th. Tell me what inspired this book, and what can we pick from this book about the idea of learning new trends?
Well, if you are going to succeed in life, you must never ever stop learning. That's what my mentor told me. Now, trends are clues. They give us what is required, what is needed. And in trends, I'm simply saying that you can't run a business or provide a service, and you are running a business that is solving imaginary problems. A business must solve real problems. To solve real problems, you have to look at the trends. The trends are determined by the customers. You are serving the customers. And the customers now, they need things to be done in a particular way. Now, let's bring it to the context of the ants. The ants does not fall among the big five. They're the tiniest creature, but they have been there for thousands of years. But some of the big five are now extinct. They are nowhere to be found. Some are in protected zoos somewhere around the world. But the ant has been able to metamorphose, has been able to adapt to different conditions throughout, that still today we have billions of ants on Earth. Actually, the mass, the body mass of ants on Earth is as equal to the body mass of all human beings on Earth today.
Don't tell me.
Yes.
Where do you get that interesting statistic?
Well, it's available, it's science, it's there.
Yeah.
The second largest society apart from human beings are ants. So ants, when they get into an environment like this building differs from the next building here. So they they detect the movements that are there. They look at the lights. They know exactly in this building where the crumbs of food are usually. And that's where they go. And they are good navigators. An ant can travel with a load on its back, which is 100 times bigger than its body mass. Yeah. And it can run at full speed, carrying that kind of thing, because it has a body that is so flexible, and it's very difficult for you to break it unless you're intentional about killing it. And so the ant will study the environment and know that this is a safe passage I can use all the time if I need to take food to the anthill. So they study the trends that every day 10 o'clock Mr. Mogobe is drinking coffee and biscuits in his office, and then he makes crumbs fall down. So between 10 and 12, a little ant will pass by. And if you notice, after some time, you see several other ants have gathered, because ants also have a very powerful communication system, very, very powerful and sophisticated communication system. So you have to study the trends in the market and say, what's going on? People now want to have convenience of, yes, I love eating a particular restaurant, but can that restaurant also bring food to my house? Can that restaurant bring food to my wedding? Can that restaurant bring food to my social event somewhere? So you have to study the trends, how the customers, what they are interested in, and then you see how you align your business with that kind of trend.
What triggered, in writing this book, what triggered your interest in ants specifically? You could have chosen other animals, lions,
Of
eagles.
course.
There's so many animals in nature which do wondrous things, but you selected ants and you wrote about an anthill.
Well, the story of ants started with one particular night. I entered my mom's hut, and my mom had cooked earlier what we call an African donut. We call it amagwinya. And so this donut was so big because she had to make it big deliberately so that you can always break it into two, have one for lunch, one for evening. So I kept my part for the evening in the hut, wrapped it in a paper, and thought I safely put it somewhere. When I came back from church that night, I went to a prayer meeting. So we couldn't afford candle. So we used a candle wax and a coal. We will put it inside the wax, and then when you light it, the wax will melt and fuel the coal, and the coal will make the lamp.
Yeah.
And so I just took my fat cake, because staying in a house that is dark, you know everything by texture. You know where your blankets are by texture. You know where the table is, even that dark. You have adapted. So I took my fat cake and I beat it. But when I beat my fat cake was biting me. Something was biting me, and I started spitting out the bread in the middle of the darkness to hold my things are moving on my face. I had to look for the match, and then when the match, I found that I have been beaten by ants, and I was bleeding, and my tongue was swollen, my face was swollen.
These are the vicious ones.
And I was so angry, mad. I killed all those ants. I hated ants. I didn't want anything to do with ants. But as I sat down, you know those Isaac Newton moments when an apple fell on his head and he had to question what really happened here. So I asked myself, I'm 1.95 centimeter tall. And tiny creatures came and took my dinner, and I willingly surrendered. I have to study this force. I had to study this ants. And from that moment...
So it was a eureka moment.
Yeah, it was a eureka moment. It was, a moment of revelation for me. And I started studying ants, and I was so shocked to find this amount of information about ants that is just lying there. Yeah.
And of course, the next point, and I'm sure ants are going to help us digest this one, don't resist change. Yes. How do we dissect that one using, of course, ants?
Well, ants understand that they live in a constantly changing environment. And because they understand that, they have that awareness that the environment changes. Take, for example, in a place where there are seasons, we have 4 seasons, like we have winter, autumn, spring, and summer. Ants knows that in summer, they must prepare food because winter is coming. And in winter, they may not be as effective as in summer. So now, ants teaches us that in order for you to thrive and not go extinct, you have to embrace change. You have to understand that change is part of doing business and change is part of doing life. So ants teaches us that whatever life throws to us, we must find a way of utilizing it and bringing the best out of it. For example, ants can bring out food out of chemicals that are meant to destroy them.
Really?
Of course.
How do they do that?
Ants are actually scientists. They are very scientific in nature. If I was to go through the whole Anthill and show you what happens, the kind of organization that happens inside an Anthill, it will shock you. Ants have hospitals inside the Anthill. So when others have broken legs and are wounded from the battle and from other predators, they carry them inside there, and then they have what we call hospital beds made out of trees. They know which trees can cure their bodies. So they bring those trees into the nest, and then they chew them, mix them with other chemicals, and then that one that is wounded will lie down there, and actually the germs or the bacteria will be extracted from the body of that ant, and then that ant will become it will become healthy, and so on. So ants adapt to change. They understand that change is important, and they have to constantly change if they are going to keep up and if they are going to succeed.
Okay. Let's talk about this national bestseller of yours. Is it a bestseller, or you're predicting the future here? Because it was launched only on Saturday.
It was launched on Saturday, but the amazing thing is that I calculated on the support of the people from my nation, as they have supported me, my ministry, and my business throughout the years. And I knew that in our country, if you have written a book, it just takes you several copies more to be a bestseller, because people sell 20 copies, they sell 100 copies, they sell 300 copies, and so on. But we had pre-orders going into hundreds. You can imagine, you were at the meeting there, and because of the limitation of the building, we had to reject other people from coming because of COVID protocols.
Yes.
So if everybody came there, you can imagine. So we used the pre-order system. The pre-order system ensured that people secure their copies well on time. So I have a lot of trips to make to deliver those books in different places where people have ordered. So actually, as we speak right now, we have ordered extra 2,000 copies, which we have to have them by December. Even when I was outside waiting for you, so there are people organizing an event somewhere, and they said, we want you in the event and we want those ends here because we need to give them to our customers.
Yeah.
So it is a bestseller.
Yeah,
because it is speaking about a message that is needed in this nation rightly at this hour and this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Innovation. That's what the ants do. That's what you speak about. I don't know whether you want to direct my attention to a particular message on innovation. But at random, I have here where you say Solomon was wiser than all the men of the East and all the sages of Egypt.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's the one who's famous for saying, consider the ant, you sluggard. And you can finish the sentence for me.
He says, go to the ant, you sluggard, and consider his ways. The ant has no commander, no ruler, no captain, but he prepares his food in summer because he knows winter is coming. Now, Solomon is a leader of a superpower of his time. He is a leader of leaders. Kings submit under his counsel. But this wise man has the time to go to an anthill and sit down there. A particular word there really touched my heart. He says, go to the ants and consider her. He was able to know that the ant that is in the anthill is a female. Far before science came and understood, now it has been captured that most of the dwellers of the anthills are female ants, because the male ants dies 5 minutes after mating. And the male ants are the ones with wings, the ones that you see, because mating of ants happens in the air. So after mating,
not all of them.
ants.
Because I've seen some wingless ones. Not all ants have wings, correct?
They have wings is because you have not been studying them. But when you study them, you will know that there is a mating season for ants. And they begin to fly. And most of the time, we say, no, kiri kokobele, kiri what. Because when we see that, we can't see that these are literally abnormal ants, because queens are big in bodies. They are very huge. And those are the ones that's the best. That's why you see when the ants are mating, lots of birds are diving in the air, because those are the juiciest ants. These are the fat ones. Yes, these are the fat ones and the males. So the males will now deposit the sperms inside the female ants.
But why should they die for sacrificing, for giving up their sperm?
I don't know, but that is how they were designed. And in the study, that is what we found out. And you should know that there is an interesting deep study of ants by science. Because if we look at the industry, we are talking about innovation. When you look at Apple industry, for example, the Apple headquarters, look at it, how big it is. Look at how many thousands of human beings are working there. Literally, if you look at them from space, they look like tiny ants moving about. And so when we see ants from an anthill, we look like they are loitering. But there is no loitering. There is systematic work happening there. An ant that is a worker is working. And it knows that I am assigned to digging a new tunnel. I am assigned to guarding the eggs and the young one. I'm assigned to cleaning up the queen and giving her food. I'm assigned to ensuring that every dead ant, there is a mortuary in the anthill. So they take all the dead ones and they bury them. So usually the mortuary ants are the oldest in the anthill.
Why that is so?
Because if they die, they already used a lot of their strength and their energy. The younger ones are used as soldiers and defenders. There is a time that ants goes to war. They are territorial. They go to war, and if you go on YouTube, you may find them. There's something called the ants dance. And what they do, this is just like two boxers coming to taunt each other. Literally two ants from different camps taunting each other, and they'll be charging at each other like that, charging at each other, and then
for entertainment purposes,
to escalate the war, because once they win, they take over the anthill. They capture that anthill, they capture the food stores, and they capture the babies of those other anthill and make them slaves in their anthill. So there is a lot of war that is happening in the anthill. And if ants feel that they have been defeated by a certain army of other ants or other predators, they will go into what is called a suicide circle. All those ants will begin to move in circle around their anthill until they die of exhaustion. Every one of them. So there's so much that is happening inside the anthill that as we go on, we will be unpacking it for people to know how things are happening.
What we can use from that and what we can reject, because obviously the suicide element we want to reject.
There's suicide elements in there that you need to but from the suicide message, you also need to learn from that message. That simply because you have looked at and assessed the situation and think like you are losing, it doesn't mean you have to kill yourself. Because sometimes you are miscalculated. Victory was just one day later, but you just decide, well, I am going to kill myself. I'm going to die.
Yeah. Now, realign and refocus. In what sense do we need to realign and refocus as Botswana? And what can we learn from ants in that regard?
There's a part where I said that water in a teaspoon is equal to an ocean for an ant. A drop of a pebble is like an anti-ballistic missile hitting an anthill. When fire comes in a wilderness, what happens? All the communication routes, the same way we have wireless, we are using wireless from routers and communication equipment. Ants have invisible trails that has been built by their saliva using a chemical called pheromone. They know that this direction is where the plentiful food is. This direction is where danger is. This way. So they follow those directions. When fire comes, it destroys all that network, which now disorientate ants, because others are caught up on the other side carrying food, but they can't find the way home. Others were cutting leaves on the other side, but they can't find the way home. Or probably a flash flood comes. When a flash flood comes, an ant is taken so many meters away from its house for an ant. But that meters to you is like being taken by a flood and throwing you in Mozambique. Now, when that happens, an ant will use the environment. It will use, number one, the position of the moon, if the moon is there, or the position of the sun to find the way home. Or it will use the position of the shadows of trees. So an ant can find its way home like a human being who is rolling on the ground, going towards your house. In that kind of disorientated position, the ant will eventually refocus, reset, and once the first ant has found the way home, other ants will start following that path, and before you know it, there is a long trail of lost ants now finding their way back to home. And when they get there, what do? A second example, in your garden, you have seen a small little anthill coming up, this small mound of ants building a small anthill and so forth. And by mistake, you step on it. Thousands of minutes that those ants have kept building that thing. And you come and destroy it. It's like taking a building as this, God forbid, and then destroying it. Now, imagine all the resources, the energy that was invested. But yet, in the next few days, you are going to find that anthill back in the same position, rebuilt again. That is refocusing. That is comeback powers. That is recovering from a tragedy. Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes people even bulldoze those anthills, but after some time they come up.
They come up again. Because an ant has comeback powers. And that's a very important message to all your viewers, to all Botswana, and to people around the world who are going to listen to this podcast, to say, look, the pandemic has happened, and we usually say that people have lost, but let me tell you something. When a tragedy happens, the only thing that you lose is the manifestation of your efforts. The manifestation of your skill is the one that you lose. It can be a building, it can be a company. That's what you lose. That's the manifestation of a something that is internal. But the system that built that business and the system that built that building are still inside of you. So you just lose the byproduct.
In other words, the intellectual power is still intact, or the intellectual property is still intact.
Of course. Do you know that nobody can buy a good meal? Nobody.
Make me understand that.
What does that mean? It means that a good meal is made. Somebody has to make a good meal. The one who buys the meal is just getting a reward. But the one who has cooked the meal is the real deal. The one who built Mogobe's company is the real deal. People can buy this building, but they can't buy the wisdom to build this building in Johannesburg. They can't get the wisdom to build this building in America, because all that mechanism is in you, and it was built in you over the years. It might have taken you 10 years to build the first building, but the second building take you a shorter time because you are drawing from that experience.
True.
Once off experience now gives you compounded acceleration as time goes on.
Wow. Whew. I need to take a deep breath before I ask you my next question, which says flexibility. I suppose this business of rebuilding anthills shows flexibility, but is there something else you want to add on to that from these lessons you've compiled for us?
Well, if you look at ants, they don't just eat one diet. They utilizes everything that is available to make their meals. Every company must have structure with flexibility. You must have processes, of course. You must have procedures. You must have ways of doing things where the ants also have something called routine. But you must also have systems that deals with crisis. When crisis comes, it's demanding for you to do business unusual. It is asking you to do things that you have never done before. And so when that moment comes, you have to be flexible. You can't say, we have always done it this way. Consider the example of Kodak. And Kodak was given an opportunity to buy the first digital camera and to become the patent owners. But they said to their own employee who produced a digital camera, you are crazy. Nobody's interested in that. That was the end of Kodak because they rejected the new. They rejected the uncommon. They rejected something that was coming.
Even though it was a bright idea from within.
It was a bright idea from within. And eventually, when people reject an idea, the idea becomes a competitor. So, at the end of the day, we have to be flexible to say, now, this is crazy, but it's true. I sit in my table at home like this, and I'm now speaking to 100,000 people every week, yet sweating in front of a building full of several hundred people could not produce that. If I did not embrace technology and then said, I am now going to preach seated down, I will not be able to touch the people I'm touching. If I did not invest in building a website, I will not have 25 countries coming into my website or seeking for my services. So, as a pastor, I need to be flexible. People said, no, now pastors can lay hands on people. Nobody laid hands on me. I just heard a voice. And in the Bible, somebody came to Jesus and said, Jesus...
And faith comes through hearing, by the way, not by touching.
Exactly. Somebody came to Jesus and says, my servant is sick. Can you come and heal him? Jesus said, I'll come. And the person said, no. I'm unworthy that you should come under my roof. He said, I am a man who is under authority, but I have people under my authority. I said to this one, go, and they go. I said to this one, come, and they come. And then he said something very powerful. He said, send your word only, and my servant will be healed. You see, now beginning to understand what you just said. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing the word of God. Romans 10:17. That when I speak to you right now, I am speaking to you with the dimension of Psalms 107 verse 20. He says he sent his word, and it healed them and delivered them from their destruction.
Wow.
Which means most of the problems of human beings is just the difference between knowledge. When knowledge comes, transformation happens. Imagine, for example, you are going to a doctor and you have a growth in your body, and you are saying, man, I don't know what is this, you are concerned. And a man with knowledge in the scientific world said, well, no, this is just an allergic reaction, and it will just take some allergens or pills that will take care of this.
Just apply some balm, and then it's gone.
Before he gives you that prescription, his words, because you regard him as an expert, his word that says this is nothing reduces your worry to nothing because of information. But you have been breathing hard and having palpitations and so on.
You want to see disruption as a new opportunity. This one, I want you to use your own life and also the stories of the ants. This disruption, you spoke of it being an opportunity to speak to thousands, to speak to hundreds of thousands. But I want you to develop a bit further, because we need to embrace the disruption as an opportunity. It's something that we speak very strongly about. But take it further, Muruti.
I'm going to say something that is unpopular. The style of running church that I found in my country and other countries centers around a man of God. And a man of God must be respected. He's just like any other leader. He must be respected. But what I found as a problem was that empowers one man and disempowers others. This one man ended up doing things that ordinary people should be doing. And that was the era of Moses. Moses, called by God, truly he has heard the voice of God. He has seen the burning bush. But he thought, I am the prophet. Nothing happens in this camp without me. I am the beginning and the end of everything. So thousands of Israelites, from morning to evening, Monday to Sunday, line up to see Moses. I have an urgent case, I want to see Prophet Moses, but I am
but didn't he eventually appoint judges?
That's where I'm going.
Why, that's where you're heading.
I began to have, I'm number 3,000 in the line, but the prophet is tired, he needs to go and sleep, and I'm still waiting there. But his experienced father-in-law comes and says, this is not good.
Jethro.
Yeah, Jethro says, this is not good. You should be a pastor. This is not. This is not good. Take the lighter matters. What are lighter matters? We are talking here about routine, things that does not need a decision to be made, because a routine is, we made a decision once that when people come to Mogobe Plaza, there is going to be a receptionist. So we don't need to decide every day Are we going to have a receptionist or not? I mean, that should just happen even when we're in America.
Yeah.
Now, we don't need to be in the church and then we say, who is going to be leading praise or who is going to be greeting these people and so forth and so on. I discovered an opportunity during COVID-19 that, hey, I've been killing myself. Some of these meetings should be run by my people. And when I began to break down the church into smaller groups, I began to see new leaders emerging. Very talented people that made me to begin to see things in a different way. But the amazing part is this. My church is in Palapa. My family is in Gaps. I stay in Gaps with my family. I pastor a big church in Palapa. But I'm not in Palapa all the time because I found an opportunity. There are people that can get things done. And this brings me to an important thing. A leader makes himself unnecessary. A true leader.
I've heard that from John Maxwell.
Yes, of course. By empowering others, by ensuring that you give others an opportunity. Let them make mistakes because I used to be there making mistakes too. I used to give my pastor a problem. So I should be okay people giving me a problem. Yeah. And that's how they are going to grow. So this whole COVID now, you see, then one of the most important thing in terms of opportunity, I looked at the fact that I'm a pastor and I'm preaching to people in a building. But the Bible said I should go to the world. When I go to the world is not as deep spiritual as I am. So I have to simplify the message. I can't write a preachy book. I have to make the book so simple that somebody who does not even know things in the Bible, they don't need to open the Bible. They can basically understand the scripture in the context of where it is. So who am I writing the book for? I'm not writing it for church people. I'm writing it for human beings with potential. All of them created in the image of God. All of them having dreams and say, I feel like a little ant, but I have this big dream inside me. I can see big ants like Mr. Mogobe, but I don't know how they became like that. So I am stuck here. And now when they read this, they begin to see that big things start small. And if you appreciate small continue to increase and become big.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the crystal ball moment where you tell us what you see for this ministry, what you see for yourself in the next 10, 15, 20 years in terms of what that word, if you like, that voice inside is telling you.
Well, I can tell people that I'm a man on a mission. An apostle means a missionary, means a man on a mission. And I travel a lot. I travel so much in this country that when you see me now, it doesn't mean in the evening I'll be here. I'll probably be in a meeting somewhere. But here is my vision. My vision is very simple. He said, touch 25% of every population where you find yourself. So if I plant my church in Molepole, I'm looking for 25% of Molepole people. If I'm planting my church, so in Botswana, I am looking at touching over 640,000 Botswana who can be able to follow my ministry or be touched by ministry either through a book. I also write songs either through a song.
Didn't know that.
I'm a songwriter. I write songs. I'll bring some of my albums to you, and so you can listen to them. I do sing with my wife, and so I either touched by music, and I am beginning to achieve that because people will call me and say, like right now, I just went to a place and the guy looked at me and says, "No, you are the man on one gospel." On one gospel I'm singing, I'm not preaching, but he has seen my music and he can identify with that. I was in game with my kids yesterday. Another guy looks at me and says, "No ways, I know you from somewhere. I was a student in Buse. You used to come and train us there. I'm now working and I saw you just wrote a book. I want the book." You see, diversify my ministry to reach out to what I call the 7 mountains of a society, which are entertainment, redefining the gospel music. The way we sing and do things in our church is very different. And then doing family. Family is the building unit of a nation. I grew up without a father, and I want to inspire young people to marry at an early age.
Yes,
if they love one another, we will support them. And I am going to come up with a solid, actually not come up, it's already there. I'm just waiting for the money to pour in and say, if 2 young people are in love and they are already working and they are already stretching themselves and all they need is to make their dream a reality, we help them have what we call a breakthrough budget for a wedding. A wedding does not take a lot of money.
Well, COVID showed us that you don't need a lot of people either.
It's shown that, which we have been saying all this time, and people have been under pressure of culture. It must be a white wedding, it must be like this. But love is private. So we have family, we have entertainment, we have family, we have business. So I train business people in the church, and some of them, but today they become millionaires from Form 4, from I have people who have been following me since primary school. Today they established businessmen because I have a proper business training institution in the church. And now we are about to move our classes to 6 to 7. And 6 to 7 in the morning, if you know you're in business, you come there. And we use biblical concepts, and we begin to talk about billionaires like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and how they related with God in the Bible, and the concepts they used, and so forth. Then we talk about those who are in career. We have career empowerment programs for, not everybody will be in business. If you're not in business, you can be fulfilling career. So how do you become a career success? So we teach people coming from portfolio and ordinary income to portfolio income. Then we move them to investment. How do you now take the money that you have and tap into systems that are already established?
So in 20 years, what we see then? I keep going back to that one. What will it be? You see an academy? You see a mega church? What can we expect?
We are on the way to be a mega church that transforms a society. A mega church that in every place where we are a system like Nando's. You don't really have to be where I am. Any guy that I've trained should be good enough. We are designing an auditorium in Palabra. It's a 5,000 seat auditorium. Now, with that auditorium, I told them I don't want a special chair. If it's good for my customers, it's good for me. It has to be like that. If the parking lot is good for my customer, for me, it must be good for my customers. If the bathrooms, I can use them, then everybody can use them. So that is the standard.
You mean everything that's good for you is good for the rest of the congregation?
Exactly, because we are saying a message. I may be excelling. It's only I'm using my potential. You are not excelling. That's why we are there, to help you connect with your potential. And you tomorrow will be bigger than me. Because the Bible says, I'll make you greater than your teachers. So when I follow a man, I expect to be twice or at least come to that area. So I have these 7 spheres of the society that I was talking about: entertainment, family, business, media, and producing people in media that produce content. One of them you've already met is Hofaun. And there are several others to do blogs, to do podcasts. They should take my message, make it their message. And as they gain experience, they must gravitate from now my experience to their experience. Correct. So when they are now talking about money, they can use my stories. But as they begin to gain success, they should now talk about how they applied my principle and they got their own.
is one of your best disciples.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, can you please take this moment to ask me a question, sir?
Thank you so much. I was going to ask you a question, and I'm glad that you gave me that opportunity. When I arrived in Gaps 2 years ago, I told my wife I need to stay in an apartment somewhere while we decide where we want to stay. Then we will stay in an apartment for 1 month while we are looking for a house, and then from there 2 years, then we can now see if we can buy a home. So we happened to stay in I Towers for the whole month in a 2-bedroom apartment with my family, and we were facing this building. I don't know whether you know how beautiful your building is at night, or especially those lights on the ground. I have them in I took photos of them. I think that is what we call destiny convergence. When something happens to you, eventually as time goes on, you are going to meet that person, one way or the other. So I want to ask you this question because people know you. What will you say is the greatest secret of your success?
I don't think I'm able to put my finger on one thing, but I certainly think, looking back, that my Christian faith had an important aspect, because I'm a 4th generation Seventh-day Adventist.
Wow.
And if it hadn't been for some of that faith, because I realized that the Bible is an entrepreneurship guide more than anything else. And And the part that I liked the most in terms of a verse is where it says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Yeah.
It doesn't say for lack of knowledge of scripture, no. It says for lack of knowledge. And that really invited me to open up to other aspects. So you can see how my faith fueled the direction of focus in terms of real estate, in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of personal development. But the key thing was a scriptural verse or a series of scriptures that directed me. And one of the most powerful books for me, which sort of fueled things a bit more, and I listed in the nuggets among the top 10 books that impacted me, is a book by a pastor called Mason, and that book is called The Enemy Called Average. Because once I read that book, I realized that God hated being average, and God hated the idea of just being lukewarm. I think somewhere in the book of Revelation, God says He's going to spew you because you are neither hot nor cold. So once I discovered that I need not be average, I need not blend in, and that is what God desires, then I accelerated my efforts, and that's when we 10x'd and 100x'd our success over the years. So I hope I've answered the question.
You have definitely answered the question, because when you step into, I'm stepping into this building for the first time, and I just stepped on the stairs and I realized this is a learning organization. It's a place of knowledge. It's a place where knowledge is valued. It's in the walls, it's in the atmosphere. You can literally feel it. And they say that as he thinks, so he is. So when I stepped into this building, I saw the open manifestation of your thoughts, because thoughts becomes things. And so you have beautifully answered it, and that's a secret that I believe that if people take it, that's what will change their life.
Okay. Pastor, we've come to the end of our talk. You have to talk to that listener and just inspire them with a party message, that viewer, and tell them something inspirational that they can take home.
Thank you so much for listening to us, and thank you so much for your patience in us unpacking what we just unpacked with Mr. Mogobe. I'm David Grace, and I am your friend, and I believe in your human potential. Please, I ask you to follow me and follow Mr. Mogobe, as we are committed to the development of human potential and helping you realize your dreams. And I hope that what we shared today will add into your journey. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Tell them how they can reach you, your contact details, how they can get hold of this book, for instance.
Awesome. So you can follow me in my social media. Facebook is David Ini Grace. You just put that David Ini Grace, and then you reach me in my Facebook, or you can reach me at +267 7123 6692, or finally on my email, Apostle dgrace@gmail.com. apostledgrace@gmail.com. So that's where you can catch me, and the book is available. We can literally send it to where you are. It's also available on Amazon Smashwords, and take a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I've been inspired. I was mesmerized for half of the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You've been an amazing host.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.